How's it going, guys? Cody, guys, back again, dropping out another video. Right, guys, if you remember just late last night, early this morning, I posted a video about Strangeways, about the certain things that's going on within the prison, and the governor was shouting it from the rooftops. Now, I said in that video, just because the governor's saying it doesn't make it true. He's pushing propaganda. Propaganda, guys, they suppress the negative stories and they push the positive stories. Right? The governor's called, I think he's called Mr. Young, the governor at Strangeways at the moment. Well, this story is on the back of Her Majesty's Inspector of Prisons report. When it comes to prison issues, guys, right, if you want to get a feel for what's going on within the prisons, right, speak to the prisoners. But this is the problem. They're not gonna let the media into the prison to speak to prisoners, are they? And I'm very critical of the prison because it's dilapidated, it's run down, and it's squalid, and it's reminiscent of Dickensian England. But it's 2018, and do you know what the weirdest thing is, guys? As I'm talking to you about Dickensian, like I say, it's 2018, and these prisons are, I think Strangeways is 150 years old next year. And at the top there, right, you'll see this. Right, look what it says at the top there, Dickensian, and then at the side, it's about like a play or something. Strange, that, innit? So anyway, guys, yeah, this is they're blaming it on Scousers as well, which is fucking ridiculous. Having been in Strangeways in 2014 to 2015, Scousers are not a problem. Yeah, they get shipped in because Walton and Altcourse always lock out, but nothing to do with Scousers and Manx and the rivalries and stuff. Load of bollocks. Scousers stick to Scousers, Manx stick with Manx. But so what? Some of the safest kids in Strangeways that I came across were Scousers, top lads, you know what I mean? A load of bollocks. Football rivalries, yes. City rivalries, maybe the hardcore. But for the most part, Manchester's Manchester, Liverpool's Liverpool, 40 miles down the road from each other. Scousers are top notch in my opinion. Get on with them very, very well. I've got a couple of Scouse friends. Right, guys, so let's read the story. Stories in the Manchester Evening News, link in the description below like I always do. Headline reads, surge in violence at Strangeways, fueled by spice and an influx of Scouse prisoners. Now, like I said, guys, just yesterday, early hours of this morning, I was telling you about the governor's preaching all this about the prison, how great it is, this is happening, that's happening. Everything's under control in this governor's eyes. Well, this Her Majesty's Inspector of Prison report, shit's all over it. And I'm more inclined to believe the Her Majesty's Inspector of Prisons report because they're more independent than the governor. So it says, attacks on staff and prisoners have tripled since 2014, a new report has found. Soaring violence at Strangeways is being fueled by spice, poor living conditions and an influx of Scouse prisoners, the Manchester Evening News understands. A new report from Her Majesty's Inspector of Prisons found that attacks at H&P Manchester have tripled since their last visit in 2014. Well, they've been there since because they released a shocking Her Majesty's Inspector of Prisons report earlier this year, so that's not true. Chief Inspector Peter Clark urged the prison to improve work on drugs, poor living conditions, which again is contrary to what the governor Mr. Young was pushing yesterday on his agenda on the story. I'll put a link in the description below for this story, for that story and that vlog. Staff attitudes to improve the situation following inspection carried out in June and July. He downgraded Strangeways to not significantly good for safety and said there's a significant drug problem, in particular with new psychoactive substance such as spice. Spice is an epidemic within prisons, guys, simple as that. The number of prisoners testing positively for new psychoactive substances in the 6 months up to the inspection was 30%. But the Manchester Evening News understands that bosses feel the surge in violence should be put into context of Strangeways' population having changed dramatically in recent years. It is felt that HMP Manchester now has a lot more younger, hardened criminals serving longer sentences who are more difficult to manage. Do you know what, guys, right? So this shocking report comes out about violence and etc. at the prison, and the prison bosses are quickly to move and say it should also be put into context into the Strangeways population. They're going to blame Scousers in a minute. Let's get to that. So it's saying that it's down to a lot more younger, hardened criminals serving longer sentences who are more difficult to manage. Many members of Manchester rival gangs are inside, and disputes on the street often have a ripple effect inside. Yes, they do, but security and intelligence, prison intelligence, normally puts warring factions on opposing wings. Currently, they include criminals from both the A-Team and a splinter faction. Two Salford gangs have been feuding for several years. On top of that, the Manchester Evening News understands HMP Manchester had an influx of prisoners from HMP Liverpool this year, which led to increased tensions. So the prison are blaming Scouse prisoners, guys. Prisoners are prisoners, doesn't matter where they're from in the country. Yes, you do get a bit of rivalry and stuff, especially when it's a match day, Liverpool and United, Liverpool and City. Do you know what I mean? It goes on, man, but has it seen an increase in violence? No. Spice, debt, do you know what I mean? The usual feuds. It says here, so the result of the damage inspector report published in January, which found scores of cells at HMP Liverpool were unfit for use. So two prisons, Walton Prison or HMP Liverpool, and Strangeways not fit for purpose either. As a result, the prison's capacity was reduced and dozens of criminals were sent to HMP Manchester, adding Scouse-Manc rivalries to the delicate balance of power inside. The report found 2/3 of prisoners said they had felt unsafe during their time at Manchester. Nearly the same amount indicated that they had been victimised by other prisoners, and over half felt victimised by staff. Staff there are not good, guys. The prison officers at Strangeways have swapped their personality for a set of keys, guys. Overall, Mr. Clark, the Her Majesty's Inspectorate Chief Inspector of Prisons, described a disappointing inspection. Again, guys, yesterday the governor's telling you how great it was. The prison's this, the prison's that. The prison went from 700 broken windows down to 40. Prisoners are writing books. They're being better fathers. They've got in-cell telephony now, so they can ring the families on the end with the stick and carrot approach, which is wrong. Every prisoner should have a phone in his cell. Family ties are imperative to reducing reoffending and also to stop prisoners slashing up and being a voice of reason and stuff like that. So it's a disappointing inspection, but like I said, the governor yesterday was telling how great it was. So I believe the Majesty's Inspector of Prisons report, which I actually stated in that story. Work on rehabilitation and release into the community remains reasonably good. Well, it doesn't, guys. They kick you out the door with £46, you're gone. Many prisoners fall back into homelessness, or because they've been in prison for so long, they lose the accommodation they've got, because not every prisoner has got a loving loved one and a wife and a family and somewhere to live on the out. So they leave prison homeless, they go straight back to crime, or they've picked up addiction whilst they're in prison, and they need to fund that habit, they have to commit crime. Then they end up back in prison, and the revolving door goes and goes again. But work on safety, respect and purposeful activity is now rated as not significantly good enough. According to the governor yesterday, prisoners getting out of the cell for longer. When I was there, guys, 23-hour lockup. From what I've heard, it's still the same now, but the governor's peddling his propaganda. But the HMIP report smashes that out of the water. In particular, Mr. Clark highlighted significant levels of violence at HMP Manchester, with figures showing 177 assaults, 45 of them on staff, in the 6 months up to the inspection visit. The report also highlighted that small but influential numbers of staff were disengaged and had little respect for prisoners and sometimes fellow staff. That's not a little, there's quite a few of them. Like I say, guys, do you know what I mean? They've been given a pay rise, guys. They're getting parva spray in January because the POA fought for it, even though the trials and stuff like that. And the figures show that the balance wasn't good, and it was used disproportionately, which can also fuel violence because prisoners are going to lash out and fight back. Little respect for prisoners and sometimes fellow staff. There have been 8 self-inflicted deaths at Strangeways since 2014, including 3 in the 6 months leading up to the inspection visit. But yet, according to the governor, guys, everything is A-OK. Inspectors saw considerable staff enthusiasm on the new H-Wing, dedicated to the reintegration of difficult and challenging individuals, and generally were many positive interactions between staff and prisoners. However, Mr. Clark added, work towards the creation of a rehabilitative culture and the aim of the prison was slow. Rehabilitation, guys, a politician's word, doesn't go on in prison. There was evidence including prisoners' perceptions of victimisation by staff. This is the thing. Yesterday, there was a story from the governor, Mr. Young, who was peddling all this shit. We're doing this, we're doing that. Our officers don't get any respect for the job they do. Blah, blah, fucking blah. Right? And this person here has spoken to prisoners who have said, including prisoners' perceptions of victimisation by staff, that pointed to a small number but influential number of operational staff who are disengaged and impeding the positive aims of the prison. The need to encourage and support the positive contribution that staff should be making was of a sufficient importance, in our view, to make the subject of one of our main recommendations. The report noted that the group demonstrated little respect for prisoners and sometimes fellow staff. Inspectors found too many prisoners, some 40%, were locked up during the working day despite the provision of sufficient activity places for all. Public protection work in a prison with many high-risk prisoners was generally good, and release planning was reasonable in addressing most needs. They kick you out the door, guys, with £46, then you're on your own. End of. Probation, you see them once a week for 5 minutes, guys. How does that aid rehabilitation and keep a lid on you and keep a watch over it? Simply doesn't. Overall, Mr. Clark said, HMP Manchester is a complex prison with a very important role in protecting the public. The prison seemed to be adequately resourced, and we were told that the prison had been improving of late. Local managers have stated commitment to ensuring the basics were right, although if we had an overarching criticism, it would be that, in fact, the basics were not always well attended to. So the prison are telling the inspectorate that everything's good and everything like that, and then local managers have stated commitment to ensuring the basics were right, so the HMP Magistrate Inspectorate Prison Report come back, although if we had an overarching criticism, it would be that in fact the basics were not always very attended to. The prison had to guard against complacency, in many respects up its game. It comes after the Manchester Evening News revealed some of the ways that is being improved for prisoners at Strangeways. That's the bullshit article from yesterday where Governor Rob Young was pushing his bullshit. Responding to the latest report, Governor Rob Young, who's been in the post since 2017, told the MEN, "I'm obviously disappointed with the reduction in the marketing and assessment. However, in recent years, Manchester have tried to address these issues with a climate of experienced staff being lost." Well, that's not what you said yesterday. You said that Strangeways hasn't been hit as hard as other prisons, reference prison officer number cuts. So you're talking out of your ass, Governor Young. So this is the thing, we're critical and cynical, and rightfully so, because less than 24 hours after your glowing fucking performance of your own prison and your own officers, it's been smashed to smithereens by Her Majesty's Inspector of Prisons report. Wah, wah, wah. If you want to get a feel, guys, for prison, right, when the inspectorate goes round, speak to the prisoners, and that's what these guys do. Our violence levels are lower than comparable prisons. Well, you can't really get a feel for that because, like I say, you've got to think, yeah, different prisons have got different prison populations and stuff like that. Prisoners have been locked up for longer, guys. Like I say, 22, 20-hour lockup. Manx and Scousers, did they get it on? Could be drugs wars and stuff like that. It could be drugs, it could be debt, it could be violence. But do Manx and Scousers just run each other up on the wings because the Manx and the Scousers, and they've got to hate each other, going back to the Manchester and Manchester Ship Canal and like the docks and stuff in Liverpool? No, it does go on. You get the hardcore of the hardcore, but if you go to prison in Manchester, it's not just going to be full of Manx. It's full of. I was in prison with Geordies, Brummies, Scousers, fucking Southerners, Cockneys. You get shipped around on the ghost. You go on the ghost train and you go from prison to prison. And some prisons get moved more than others. But like I say, prisons are full of different people from different areas, different dynamics. It just, obviously, Strangeways is a local. People think, oh, it just houses the worst of the worst. Nonsense. It's a Category A prison, but it only actually houses 40 Cat A prison. It's actually multi-category prison. You've got Cat Bs in there, you've got Cat Cs in there, but they're awaiting their Cat reclassification so they can get shipped, because they've got to be spaces to fill them in. If you go to Manchester Crown Court, Manchester Crown Square, you'll go to Strangeways. You go to Manchester Magistrates and you are remanded, unless you're a YO, you'll go to Strangeways. From every courthouse in the UK, guys, you go to a specific prison, unless that prison is locked out. I went from Trafford Magistrates, where some police informant, lying little scumbags, who made an allegation of witness intimidation with no corroborating evidence, no forensics, no DNA, no call recordings, even though they was under police protection. I ended up in prison, guys. From Trafford Magistrates, got remanded, appealed, got the appeal went through, CPS appealed, 48-hour recall, straight to prison. Strangeways, I was the only, I took the last place on the sweatbox to go to Strangeways. Everyone else ended up going to Leeds and stuff, Armley and all that, over them sides. Right, guys, going to leave this video here. Let me know what you think about the story. Look at the video a bit further down my timeline about what's happening at Strangeways and stuff, and how the governor praises the prison and the officers when 24 hours later the Magistrates Inspector of Prisons smash it out of the water. Who's telling the truth? Like, comment, subscribe. Cody out.